Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. Parliament has been officially prorogued until March 24th following Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation. Meanwhile, south of the border, Donald Trump is back in the Oval Office and threatening tariffs on Canadian goods. What does this mean for the state of our nation? Here to talk to us about it is MP for New Brunswick Southwest, John Williamson. Thank you so much, John, for being here today.
It's my pleasure. And no one can say we do not live in interesting times, which might become chaotic as well, but we'll hope for the best.
Very interesting times. So Parliament won't be sitting again till March 24th. What does that mean? What's the feeling like in Ottawa?
So what it means is there's a padlock on Parliament. Committees are no longer sitting. Parliament will not sit until March 24th. And all legislation, all bills that were before Parliament are now dead as well. This, of course, was triggered by the Prime Minister when he announced to Canadians that he was going to resign as Prime Minister once the Liberals have chosen a new leader and a new Prime Minister. But it really puts not only the work of Parliament in Canada in a holding pattern, it also means that I think for Justin Trudeau and his lame duck status, it's going to be more difficult dealing with the Trump White House now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. What does that mean? So his announcement was January 6th, so I'm not losing the irony on that as well. And it means that we don't have Parliament sitting at the time of the Trump administration coming into effect with these looming potential tariffs coming on Canadian goods as well. How is our government navigating that and what it could mean with our trading partner? And how will we get past it?
Well, these are great questions, and I think the quick answer is we just don't know. But here's how it makes it more difficult. So in the fall, when Donald Trump said there were a bunch of issues that he wanted Canada to address, our border, the flow of illegal money in drugs, and national defense. Well, the Liberals, in response to that, put forward a bill that would spend about $1.2 billion on an enhanced border. But that bill hadn't passed Parliament. So with Justin Trudeau's prorogation, the bill's dead now. So it's not like he can even point to progress being made on it. In fact, we've taken a step back. So Parliament is the entity in this country that authorizes the spending of money. So there are obviously decisions the Prime Minister can make himself about economic issues, but he actually cannot spend any money dealing with the threat from the White House. And that's one reason why we're coming back. A money bill has to pass Parliament by the end of March to keep our government open. We often hear about U.S. government shutdowns when they don't pass money. Our system is different, but we do have some similarities. And if a money bill is not passed by the end of March of this year, there will be no money as of April the 1st. So that's why I think the Liberals are bringing us back when they are. They have to get something through Parliament or else.
Okay. And what is that? So it gives you about a week to figure this out.
Well, it gives the government a week. I mean, our view is we need an election. And, you know, for people who thought it was unfair to call Justin Trudeau a narcissist, we actually see the proof is there now. Not only has Justin Trudeau put the Liberal Party in a very difficult position by having it choose a new leader in 2 months, who will then have, that leader will have about 2 weeks before Parliament comes back. On top of that, this country is at a standstill, just as we have the threat coming in the White House, Donald Trump's threats of tariffs against this country, and we have a lame duck Prime Minister. We think we need an election, and we need Canadians to decide. That would also give the government a mandate to deal with the Trump White House. Okay,
when would you like to see an election? We're looking at on paper this fall.
Well, we would like, so by law it has to be in October. I mean, we have voted several times before Christmas non-confidence, and every time the NDP propped up Justin Trudeau. The NDP leader is now saying he will also vote non-confidence in the government at the first opportunity in March. Our view would be to have an election right now. Obviously, we can't force that to happen, but this is a very bad position we're in, because even when we come back in March, 2 months from now roughly, Parliament will sit for a week or two, probably pass that money bill. We need to keep government open. There's going to be a confidence vote. The government could fall. Then there's an election, 7 or 8 weeks. we might not have a stable government in this country until June, the summertime. This is very bad, given what's coming out of the United States with the Trump administration.
And yet we are seeing some Canadians take stands. I'm thinking of Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been very vocal about retaliatory tariffs and what he thinks should be done. There are people who are trying to say Canada will fight back. What should we be doing, especially given how our hands are tied?
Yeah, look, I think we have to stand up for ourselves. I think, for example, we do have premiers across the country positioning themselves. I think Susan Holt, our new premier, had the right tone about her blood boiling. I think she spoke on behalf of a lot of New Brunswick families and individuals when we hear the talk coming from Donald Trump. But we should not just be gearing up for a trade war. The United States is 10 times our size. There are things we can do, obviously we must do, to counter the tariffs, but I think we need to get back to basics. And before Donald Trump started talking about the 51st state and all that nonsense, he was talking about specific deliverables he wanted to address. More money for Canada's defense to meet the NATO commitments we've pledged to but have failed to follow up on. Tighter border security, and to stop the flow of both illegal gang money in and out of this country, particularly on the West Coast, and the flow of drugs in and out of this country. So these are things that I think we should be focused on. Because at the end of the day, I think we have to remember that at the heart of it, Donald Trump is about making a deal. And while there's a lot of bluster now, and I think it's clear he does not like Justin Trudeau, along with an awful lot of Canadians, he's, I think stirring things up needlessly, but I think we need to get back to striking a deal, showing the Americans we're serious about stopping the flow of drugs, tightening our border, and making the commitment or fulfilling the commitment we already made on NATO. And hopefully that will get us through this.
And talk a little bit about what that commitment is. It's 2% of our gross domestic product that we're expected to spend on defense to be a part of NATO.
That's right. So
how does that compare to what we're actually spending?
So the NATO countries committed some time ago, I think in Trump's first term, Donald Trump's first term, to spend 2% of our economy, size of our economy, on defense. And at that time, I think only 6 of the 32 countries were doing that. Now I think it's about 6 countries are not doing it, and unfortunately Canada is one of them. We've gotten better, but we're still a laggard. And it's particularly irksome, I think, to our allies because we're a G7, we have a strong economy, yet we've not fulfilled the commitment we've made. And I think Donald Trump knows that, which is why he's twisting the screws now. So to me, that's a deliverable that not only do we believe in, as a country, we committed to ourselves, so let's start to get it done and show the Americans that we're good partners once again.
Again, I guess this comes back to the same question, is how do we do that at a time when Parliament is prorogued? How do we get this message across, given that Donald Trump has said he will take these actions immediately if he sees nothing on our end?
Well, that's a great point as to why it was folly to prorogue Parliament. There's no reason why Parliament could not have sat and remained open while the Liberals were choosing their new leader. I think it was a mistake for Liberals to say, well, we'll all just take a break while this political party gets itself sorted out. Because that's, I think, a very good point. Anything we're saying now, we cannot back up in legislation. We cannot say, well, here's our plan to do it, and we're going to pass this in Parliament. So our hands are tied right now, and we cannot do anything until Parliament's opened up. Now, of course, the Prime Minister could signal, but even that's difficult for the Prime Minister to signal that because he's a lame duck Prime Minister. He's really, for something like increasing defense spending to 2%, that is a pledge that would begin in a year or two and could take several years. So what's Justin Trudeau got to say about next year's budget or the budget after that? Really nothing, and he's a figurehead. And that's why he's put this country in a very, very bad position. He has no real authority to fulfill promises he makes. And that's why I think so many premiers are stepping up. I mean, this country is led by the government of Canada. It should be the primary government speaking for all Canadians. But because of Trudeau's lame duck status, we're seeing premiers now speaking out on their own. Their power is limited, though. We have to recognize that. And while I think there are premiers who are speaking up and echoing what Canadians believe, we're not organized as a country to deal with the incoming administration.
So March 9th is when the Liberals will pick a new leader. From your perspective, we're hearing Carney, we're hearing Freeland. There are names that are circulating. Do you have any idea of who it might be or any insight from where you're sitting?
I have none. I know it's a... So I've been involved with organizing the national leadership of the Conservative Party some years ago. These contests usually take several months. To try to sandwich it in two is very difficult, because when you sign up thousands or tens of thousands of members, it does take the central parties time to validate those, get them organized by riding, and get that information out. So I think it's going to be a narrow field. I think that's why you're seeing people like Christy Clark and John Wilkinson saying they're not going to do it, because the deadline for new members is probably going to be pretty short. Then there'll be a contest to kind of reach out to those voters, and then they'll vote. But I assume it's going to be a contest between Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, and Liberals will decide. But it is ironic that if it is, I think it's a disgrace that if Carney wins, he'll become Prime Minister without ever having been elected to anything. Never elected dog catcher, certainly never elected as a member of Parliament. And he's going to step up there and then begin to work and negotiate with Donald Trump as if he has a mandate to do so. Another reason why, as soon as Liberals choose a leader, we should have an election, because the next person has to have a mandate from the Canadian people on how to deal with the United States.
Does this change anything in terms of campaigning from a Conservative perspective to have this change in leadership?
Obviously it won't be Justin Trudeau, but they're all just like Justin Trudeau. Chrystia Freeland was there for the entire 9 years. For the last couple years as finance minister, she has defended and sold the carbon tax. Carney as well has been an advisor to the Prime Minister. He's written at length about the importance of a carbon tax and how efficient and wise that measure is. So we're up against Justin Trudeau-like individuals. The leadership is not going to produce a real break. The next carbon tax is going to go up again on April the 1st. It is already set in law. They could reverse that in that brief period they have. We'll see if they do so, but I don't think it's going to change much. The housing market is still a mess because of decisions the Liberals made. Crime and chaos in our streets, again, because of the soft on crime approach from the government. Our energy market is in ruin, and so I don't see a big change. But campaigns matter. Politics can be interesting. We'll see. We're taking nothing for granted, which is why my leader Pierre Poilievre is still crisscrossing the country and meeting people. I'm doing the same thing in New Brunswick Southwest over prorogation, getting out to see people and staying busy.
Mm-hmm. And with this new Trump era coming in, his second time in the Oval Office, but this new threat of tariffs, how do you think Pierre Poilievre will handle Trump? It will be a big defining moment of this next year.
I think you're right. Well, I think from a position of strength, he's going to take measures that will strengthen this country. He's going to harness our energy exports to broaden the markets. Because right now, because of Liberal policy, when it comes to selling Alberta oil, the vast majority goes to the United States, because the Liberals killed Energy East Pipeline, which would have come to Atlantic Canada and opened up markets in Europe. Just recently, the pipeline to BC opened up at a huge cost, which is taking some of the pressure. But we have a federal government that has restricted oil expansion outside of the U.S. market. We're going to change that. We're going to look for new markets so we're not as reliant on the Americans for what we produce. Similarly, we're going to take action on rare earth minerals and begin to develop those markets so we have the security not only from the Americans, it seems now, but also the Chinese, which dominate the market. We're going to repeal the carbon tax and bring down taxes so businesses want to stay in this country as opposed to go elsewhere. Trudeau's put us in a very, very weak position. It's why our loonie is so low at 68, 69 cents, although I did see it jumped about half a penny when Justin Trudeau resigned. But In the last number of years, billions of dollars in investment have left this country. We're less competitive. Our dollar is weak, and that's because of bad government policy, and we're going to change that. So that when we're dealing with Donald Trump, we're at a position of strength about what our resources and what we can do to work in cooperation with the Americans and not be in a weakened position like we are now.
Donald Trump over the years has positioned himself in an interesting way. He's someone who somehow can say things that we don't take seriously. For instance, Canada being the 51st state. I can't imagine any other leader in the world being able to say such a thing and have it passed off as joking, but a lot of people are scared this isn't a joke.
Yeah, I never felt it was a joke. I remember when this first broke, I was watching Canadian news. But if you watched American news, their officials weren't saying what the Liberals were saying. This is just a joke. And then, of course, we realized a few weeks later, oh, he's repeating it. I think when it comes to Trump, take what he says seriously, but not literally. And so when you kind of parse away the bluster and the bombast and the insults, okay, what's he really trying to get at? And I think he's talking now about kind of like an exaggerated opening bid, but as a deal maker, will end up somewhere, I think, different. And that's true for Greenland as well, which was in his sights as well. The same with the Panama Canal. I mean, it has been, for example, U.S. military policy that in the event of a conflict with China, the U.S. military could seize control of the Panama Canal because there's a lot of Chinese interest there to ensure that passageway stays open. Trump just says it out loud and gets everyone all worked up. So, Donald Trump is going to be in a very strong position to enforce policy that he thinks is necessary. I think he's going to have his hands full in the short term, in particular, on crime and border issues and immigration issues in the United States. That's going to keep him occupied. So I'm hoping cooler heads will prevail. Canada does have a lot of friends in the United States. We have a lot of friends business to business. We have a lot of friends in the U.S. Congress. And of course, there are family ties and friendship ties as well. Our trading relationship with the United States is one of two countries that exchange goods for mutual benefit. And so when the U.S. president kind of compares us to China, I think that is wrong. I think he's just doing that to kind of get everyone all worked up. At the end of the day, we produce a lot of goods and services that Americans buy from us because we offer them at a competitive price. We have resources and materials that the Americans want to buy from us. And that's why I am hopeful that after some bumps and some needless delays caused by Justin Trudeau, we will get through this. But I do worry it's going to be bumpy and difficult over the next couple of months.
Yeah, do we have more muscle than we may not have originally seen? Do we have more that the U.S. relies on us for than I think maybe
I think we have a lot of
first?
muscle. Yeah, I do think we have a lot of muscle. Look, it's why going back almost 40 years, the United States struck their first free trade agreement with Canada because of not only the strong economic cooperation, but the resources that we sell one another. I mean, not only is our auto industry really intertwined, so is our seafood industry here. I mean, we sell lobsters into the New England and American market. Maine lobstermen sell their lobsters here. We process them and then send them back into the United States. The same thing with our electricity market. It is truly integrated. Our oil and gas market, similarly, we are a safe, reliable partner. So I think we actually do have a lot to offer. I think the Americans know it, and of course, I mentioned one important here of New Brunswick as well. I should mention is our forestry as well, which is in great demand as cities and states all across the United States try to build more affordable homes. So I do think we have a lot to offer. I think if we increase our military spending and address the U.S. administration's concern on border and drugs, we can be an even better partner. And that's I'm confident we'll get there. But as I said, I don't think we should dismiss or underestimate that this is all going to have to wait months because of Justin Trudeau. He should have gone months ago to give the Liberals time to come up with a new leader, or he should have seen it through and called an election when he announced he was going to leave. Put it to the people, but instead he talked about never wanting to run from a fight, but then he did just that. He shut down Parliament, put a padlock on it, and here we are in limbo.
You mentioned a lot of the premiers stepping up to the plate in this moment, but we are hearing from Alberta not necessarily wanting to play ball with the rest of Canada. Should we be concerned?
Well, this is where things are going to break down. So, for example, on my drive up here, I was listening to CBC, and they had someone on from the Lobster Council of Canada talking about how integrated the lobster industry is. We sell lobsters in New England. They sell lobsters here. And this spokesperson was saying, we might get hit with a tariff selling lobsters into the United States, but we don't want a tariff on Maine lobsters coming in, even as a reciprocal move, because that would then hurt jobs here. And of course, so when you sell it back, it's now getting hit 25% on both sides. I think that's Alberta's position as well. They don't want to see, in an already difficult economic environment, a product that the United States needs to be hit with tariffs as well. And where I do think Canada's need to speak with one voice. Now that voice should be the Prime Minister. And I think it was a mistake for the Prime Minister to put out a consensus document that didn't have consensus. It's his job to find consensus. And where Daniel Smith, I believe, has a point is this federal government has spent the entire 10 years trying to cut off avenues for Alberta to sell its oil to other countries. So they really have one market today. And now Daniel Smith listens to Justin Trudeau and say, now you want to take that away. Well, hold on a second here. You wouldn't let us sell oil to through Energy East to Quebec and New Brunswick and beyond. You shut down other pipelines to British Columbia. So they view all their interests with the United States. And of course, we saw Daniel Smith down with Donald Trump trying to figure out, how do we get out of this situation. So no, there's no doubt that when Canada is not speaking with a unified voice, it is going to hurt, I think, our negotiation. But again, I blame the federal government on that. They speak for Canada. It was Justin Trudeau's father who scolded the premiers by saying Canada speaks for the country. But because of Trudeau's decisions and his lame duck status, he can't do that.
You mentioned earlier in the show that the work that you'd been doing, that all of the MPs have been doing on defense gets thrown out the window when Parliament's prorogued. The same can be said for the online harms bill. Where does that leave things going forward, though? Can they be picked up again, or does it start from scratch? So
they can be picked up again with all party consensus. In this Parliament, you're not going to find that. I don't think. Otherwise, the government has to go back to step one, reintroduce the bill, first reading, off to committee, and then so it really is back to step one. Right. And again, with a likely election, there is going to be a rendezvous with voters, whether it is this winter, summer, in the fall, it is coming. A new government's going to have, I think, new priorities as well. So I think this Parliament has now run its course. We're going to see what the kind of quick steps are to kind of get some money passed so the federal government keeps operating. But in terms of agenda, I think it's done. I think we're going to hear from Canadians before we get a real sense from the next from Parliament and the new Liberal leader about their priorities. I think we're you just get a sense in Parliament when you can tell the whole thing's broken down. And an election's needed to kind of reset and clarify things. And look, on the odd chance the Liberals get in again, and again, maybe they will. I don't think so, but maybe they will. They'll have a mandate, and they'll be able. And that does shift attitudes in Parliament. And another party gets in. If the Conservatives win, if we win, we'll have a mandate to do things as well, and we'll pick things up as well. So, as I said at the top, it's interesting times. We don't know how it's going to unfold. Just that at the end of the day, Canadians are going to get their say. We'll have a government in place, and we'll be able to deal with the Americans the way we have as a united country.
About just over a minute left, John, as Parliament will resume March 24th. What are you doing in the meantime? What's on your plate? So
it's I'm visiting different parts of New Brunswick Southwest. I'm actually starting to venture into St. John a little bit because when and if an election is called, these boundaries are changing. I'm going to inherit St. John West, so there's just some interest I have in there. I've got some open invitations from groups like Habitat for Humanity to go see some of their impressive work, and some other groups like that have invited me to just come hear their concerns, and so I'm looking forward to doing things like that. And there'll be a couple quick trips up to Ottawa as well, just to kind of take care of some business for some outstanding issues I have. But it's an odd time, because usually the February to April is really when a lot of the real work gets done in Parliament. Once you start getting into spring, things get hot around the collar, and you get a little more political. So normally in the winter is when the committee work happens, bills get through Parliament, we have a budget, and all that has been put on hold for now.
Okay, well, I look forward to sitting down with you again in the weeks ahead. Thank you so much for coming in today.
It's my pleasure. Great to be with you and your audience, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. My guest today has been the MP for New Brunswick Southwest, John Williamson. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.